Hello there, and welcome to another installment of my Monday live stream, Chuck's Captivating Chat. How are you all doing? It's been quite a period for me. Um, my dear friends and colleagues, Joyce Petrus of Mystic Soul Insights and Pam of Pomona Remembers, and we were working together today to do a really special show in honor of Carol Burnett. Her 91st birthday is coming up in a few days. We just thought it would be fun to just share our stories, our experiences of how Carol Burnett has richly affected our lives and why we love her. Joyce did a astrological chart on Carol. Pam had her own stories of how Carol Burnett has directly influenced her. I have some very deeply personal stories to tell. But anyway, that's going to be for later. It's not going to be for the show today. Uh, we got together and we did this about an hour and a half or so, and discovered once it was all finished and we were so proud of ourselves, for whatever reason, the show did not record. That's right. It did not record. And it's all lost. And I think about that famous painting, The Scream. That's exactly the way I think the three of us felt. We wanted to scream, but we realized that what we have to do is just recognize that today was a dress rehearsal and we will get together tomorrow and record it again. And hopefully we can recreate the magic. But I was thinking back to times in my life. I'm old enough to have used real cameras with real film inside of them. And I can think of at least once or twice in my life where I had an important event and you guessed it, there was no film in the camera. No film in the camera. And then I had another time, it was a 35 millimeter camera. And, if you ever use those, you have to line the film up on the sprocket holes. So when you move the film forward, that's how it moves. Well, anyway, I didn't have the film threaded properly and I lost all my pictures then. So anyway, our tribute to Carol Burnett is going to have to wait another day. And that was going to be actually the show today. Actually, it was going to be enough material for me, enough material for Pam, enough material for Joyce. We're back to square one. And I had to scramble to figure out how to put together a live stream for today with some completely different subject matter. And I see here that Pam is here and Kathy and Joyce. Hey, thank you all for joining. It means so much to me to have you here. And as stressful as of this has been, I find that when I do this show, it's actually incredibly calming to me. This is like my sweet spot. This is like a reservoir of peace. When I see that 3, 2, 1 live, I feel calm and alive. And I love being here with all of you. I love the friends that I'm making. Oh, I see somebody sent me a heart. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. So I had to scramble to put together a show today. I didn't even get to post an announcement for the show today. But hey, spontaneity can be a good thing. Spontaneity has a life all its own. And sometimes you just have to, it's like getting on a surfboard, getting on a wave, and you just have to ride it. And I'm going to ride the wave of energy today. So I was thinking, now what can I talk about? And I looked back on some of my, um, making a little adjustment here, some of my videos that I've posted on my channel in the last few days. And that's always good subject matter for me uh, because I can take things and go a little further. And sometimes new thoughts come to me. I just posted some pieces about my late friend, the actor Tom Sizemore. Um, he died a little over a year ago, and there was a period of time where I could consider him to be my friend. It was when I lived in West Hollywood here in California, and it was in the late 1990s. Tom was my neighbor. He lived about 3 blocks away. And oddly enough, he and his wife lived in a rather modest apartment, which surprised me, for someone who was a big up and coming actor, someone very much on the A list, somebody who had worked with Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Robert De Niro. But as I got to know Tom, I found out some of the reasons why he had had some setbacks. Um, Tom was the first to admit this. He was very open about it. He wrote an autobiography where he discussed his ongoing issues with drug addiction. Um, and I've known several recovering drug addicts. I've known recovering alcoholics, and it's not like one of those Susan Hayward movies where you're magically cured at the end of the movie and you never drink again. Most people I know who have dealt with addictions will say it's a daily battle. Some will say it is on the minute and on the hour battle. It's something you have to constantly patrol and monitor. And sometimes, being the humans we are, we slip up, we make mistakes. Tom Sizemore was one of those people. He told me that Robert De Niro had helped him to uh, quote unquote get cleaned up. I don't mean to make light of it, but that was his own term, get cleaned up, help him to get off of drugs, detoxify, got him in rehab. And uh, Tom was such a humble man. He would say, "Oh, I'm not putting on airs or anything." He referred to Robert De Niro to me once as Bobby De Niro. And he was telling me that. And he goes, "Oh, I don't mean that. I just mean that he is my friend and he did help me, but it was almost like he was apologetic for how famous and successful he was, which was a very sweet side to Tom Sizemore. This was a side of him that I got to see that I don't think the public really did get that much of an opportunity to have. But anyway, he was my neighbor, lived about 3 blocks from me. And also at the time, I was really lucky. I could walk to work in 5 minutes where I was working, the health nutrition store, where I was a nutritionist. I advised vitamins, herbs, homeopathy programs. And he came in as a customer one day. I'm just looking at comments here. Kathy's asking Tom Sizemore's movies or shows. Well, actually, I was going to come to that. I will in just a moment. He was probably most famous for Saving Private Ryan, but I'll work my way there. But anyway, he came into this store, and that's where I really got to know him. And I didn't realize how close he lived to my home. And so that's where we struck up our friendship. And of course, that was very exciting for me because in the late 90s, Tom Sizemore he was on the abyss. He was so close to becoming an A-list actor, the top, that magical upper 0.5%, the superstars. He was well on his way. And this was around the time of Saving Private Ryan, which now, in hindsight, is what he will probably be best remembered for. He had a very strong supporting role in the movie. And because Tom was like this big, burly, tough guy. That's how he got cast. He got cast a lot as gangsters and thugs, that type of character. But I got to see the side of him. It was like a little boy on Christmas morning. He came into the store. He had the LA Times with the review for Saving Private Ryan. And of course, it was a rave. And there was a big full page ad for the movie with all these rave reviews from other critics. And it was clear this was going to be not just a major box office success, it was going to be an artistic success. And there was even talk later of Tom Sizemore getting a Best Supporting Actor Oscar nomination, which fortunately did not happen, but it certainly looked like a strong possibility. So this is when I knew Tom, and that was particularly exciting for me. But it was just fun. We would get together and we would just talk. He would tell me little inside stuff about the show business industry and tell me about other actors he'd worked with and working with Scorsese and Spielberg. And actually, I'd already heard stories about Spielberg because my one-time acting teacher was Dee Wallace, and of course, she starred in E.T. the Extraterrestrial. So that's two direct associations I had with Spielberg. But I loved Tom Sizemore, and I know there's been some really ugly controversy about him, and I'm even as I've posted some of my videos, which have been very pro Tom Sizemore, I've almost been waiting for yeah, Chuck, but what about the spousal abuse, Heidi Fleiss, the drug issues, the imprisonment? Yes. Sadly, yes. I'm very aware of all that, and I'm certainly not condoning it. And there's a lot of facts I don't know all about. Like, I remember in my neighborhood once, so there was a police report, all these police cars outside of his apartment building, and it turns out that there was some accusation that he had maybe hit his wife. I don't know. I never confirmed that. I also know that while he was on such a high with Saving Private Ryan, it started falling apart again. And I didn't directly witness this for myself, but as I saw less and less of him and I started to see news stories like that, and then I started to see less of his career because after that movie, he should have gone on to something big, and apparently Tom did fall off the wagon again. He got heavily in drugs, and then, of course, there was uh, s the scandal with Heidi Fleiss, and then he was thrown into jail for a while. Um, I forget the circumstances. I think that had to do with, drug possession, and it saddened me because, you see, I believe that no matter who a person is, there's always goodness in their soul, and that's what I saw in him. I saw that goodness in him. So my heart just reached out to him, even though I had no way of reaching him anymore as the years went on. I did He obviously left the neighborhood. I didn't know where he went. And around 2008, he hit a really low point. And again, this is part of the controversy of Tom Sizemore. He did a porno film, one of the on DVD, a DVD porno film. And that's about, for someone who was once working with Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg and one of the stars of Saving Private Ryan to being reduced to that, that told me he was in a really low, dire place in his life, that he had to do that. It was like, I guess he felt he had to cash in on his name in any way he could, and maybe the only thing he felt that was left was do something sensationalistic like a porn film. And so that saddened me greatly. And then there were years I didn't hear much about him, and then occasionally I'd see something on the internet where he was working, like he was doing some low budget movies, horror films, some television. So I guess he picked himself up a bit. Um, but then this was last year. I'm very intuitive, and I was in a shower. I was just washing my hair, taking a shower, and for some reason, I was flooded with feelings about him. I kept, why am I thinking about Tom Sizemore right now? What? But it was like, how is he? Is he okay? I was feeling like something was very wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it other than I couldn't get him out of my mind that night. And then the next day, I saw the news. He had suffered a brain aneurysm and was in a coma. And he died a week later. And I realized that's what it was that night. I was picking up on his spirit. I was picking up on some kind of distress. And I don't know, in some ways, it was almost like he, in a spiritual way, was saying goodbye to me or something. But anyway, I posted on my channel a portrait that I began painting of him. I love to do portraits. That's my favorite thing. And I love to find portraits of people with really soulful eyes with a lot going on. It's like those dimensions within. And Tom Sizemore, he had so much going on within himself. And I was eager to paint him for that reason, to try to capture that in his eyes, but also just like a little bit of a tribute for myself, a little bit of therapy for myself, because I never did get to actually say goodbye to him. There was no closure. I hadn't seen him in years, but very fond of him. And, I was rather irked because last year, the Oscars, the way they do that in memoriam segment, they didn't mention him. And I was sitting here on the couch watching. I was like, what? What? I mean, this was the one year the in memoriam section on the Oscars was deeply personal to me. And it wasn't just not just Tom Sizemore. I was also friends with the actor Paul Sorvino, the marvelous Paul Sorvino, another great, great character actor. That's something he and Tom Sizemore shared in common, gifted character actors. And even with Paul. Paul had something of a career where he played like a lot of mobsters, mafia guys, thugs. I mean, he got to have more opportunities because his career lasted a lot longer, and he did have things more together. Tom had his demons that Paul did not have. But I loved Paul Sorvino, and it was another instance where I had this actor I had been watching since I was a kid. I remembered him in the movie, Warren Beatty's movie Reds. I remembered him on television shows, and I believe he was in Goodfellas. I had such admiration for him. And I remembered the time that Paul Sorvino had been on the Johnny Carson show, and Johnny apparently was so impressed with him. It was the only time I've ever seen this done where Johnny devoted the entire hour to give Paul a showcase and let Paul be interviewed for an extra long time. He let Paul do some dramatic things, and then he let Paul sing. And I didn't even know this, that Paul had this beautiful operatic voice. And I got to tell Paul that, and he was really touched that I remembered that, and I said, "How could I possibly forget something like that?" So anyway, Tom and Paul were my neighbors and my friends, and yeah, you guessed it, Paul Sorvino also did not get mentioned in the memoriam section on the Oscars last year, so that really, really irked me, and I guess I've tried to make it up for it a few times here with my little itty bitty channel to, mention them from time to time and do some pieces. And right now I've got some pieces on Tom Sizemore. I hope you'll check out on Chuck's Captivating Chat. No, excuse me. This is Chuck's Captivating Chat. I meant to say Chuck's Captivating Chronicles. I'll say it right now. Like and subscribe, please. And comment. I love your comments. I feel like I'm making a lot of friends out there. That's exciting. That's one of the best things about social media. Just right now, I'm seeing people chiming in here. Kathy and Laura, Pam. I see people are saying hi to each other, which is really nice. But one of the things I can also say about living in West Hollywood, I had some really interesting neighbors. Sometime I'll have to talk about Lois Nettleton. She was my friend and neighbor. Um, she was very famous for the Twilight Zone episode, the where the sun was moving in closer to the earth and the temperature was rising and the mercury was bursting out of the thermometers. And she was an artist and her canvas paintings, all the paint was melting. But it was really fun to get inside stories from her. And I've told that before. Maybe I'll mention it again sometime. But it got to where it was no longer a big deal meeting celebrities, and that was something I thought that day was never going to come to me. Me, Mr. Starstruck, and I moved out here to California in the '80s, and oh my God, I'm meeting Sissy Spacek. Oh my God, I'm meeting Claudette Colbert. Oh, blah, blah, you know, it just, I was always like a little kid in a candy store. Well, it was finally, I'd say maybe the last decade or so. And it was mostly because of my work, the health store, and we had a juice bar in there. So we had huge celebrities coming in every day. I had periods where I had Anne Hathaway in almost every day, Leonardo DiCaprio, RuPaul, um, trying to think who else now. I'm going blank now. Amy Adams, Justin Bieber was in almost every day. Jeff Goldblum, many I would see every day, and it got to the point they were just people. It's like, "Oh, you're an Oscar-winning movie star. Cool, great profession. Now, how can I help you here?" It was like that. I was, it what's that, Kathy? Do you have a collection of autographs? Oh, I sure do. That's a whole other story. I've talked about that, from time to time. I'll mention it in just a moment. Let me, just, what I was saying here. Um, it just got to where I was used to these people as regular people every day, and I realized I'm not starstruck anymore. It would have, I think if it were Barbara Streisand, maybe, Meryl Streep, I still wanna meet Julie Andrews. There are a few left who would get me, and Carol Burnett, even though I've met her 3 times, oh, can never get enough of Carol Burnett. Um, but yeah, it actually got to the point, 3 of my regular customers/friends, Jeff Goldblum and, Adrian Brody, and I'm trying to think who else was it? It was, anyway, come to mind Adrian Brody and, yeah, there I was I'm driving me crazy. Who was the 3rd person I wanted to say here? But, anyway, yeah, Jeff Goldblum, and anyway, I saw a movie where these actors were in it, and it was actually more strange to look up on a movie screen and see them playing characters rather than being in real life. So anyway, so, Kathy, you were asking me about autographs. Yes. Oh my God, do I have autographs? I've been collecting for like 30 years. And I mean, seriously. I've got, my great love is old Hollywood, 1930s, 40s. These were people, when I was a kid growing up, I used to read every book I could get my hands on about old Hollywood. I'd read every biography, autobiography of these stars, and I just loved them so much that when I came out here to California, I befriended a man who had a memorabilia store, a wonderful man named Al Morley. I loved him dearly, much older man than me, but he became like family. And I've discovered his store. It was on Melrose. Any of you know LA. It was across the street from the Pacific Design Center. And he had a shop called Matinee Idol. And I walked in there and he had all these framed pieces. I mean, Jean Harlow, Greta Garbo, Marilyn Monroe, Joan Crawford, Betty Davis, Clark Gable. You can go on and on and on. All of these great stars, signed pictures, contracts, checks, letters. And I had no idea it was possible to own things like that. And I was like, I want to do that too. And that year, he wasn't cheap. I had to save up some money there to buy my first 2 or 3 pieces. I think one of the first things I ever bought from him was a Stan Laurel, a check Stan Laurel had signed in 1927, and bought a picture signed by Mae West. But anyway, it was like a virus that bit me, and the collection over the next 30 years just kept growing bit by bit by bit, to where I acquired a Charlie Chaplin, I acquired a Clark Gable, I got a Katharine Hepburn, and then I think my first really big piece was a picture signed by Jean Harlow. And those are very rare because her mother signed most of the things for her. Jean did not sign many things. And I think this has been disputed now, but at the time I got the picture, I was told it was one of maybe 12 known to exist, a picture signed by Harlow. And, I've got like Carol Lombard and my God, Will Rogers. I've got Rita Hayworth, Billie Holiday. I have a check signed by Marilyn Monroe, but it's not like I did all this all at once. It was bit by bit by bit. But now, 30 years later, I have these hanging in my home. And because I'm so sensitive to energy, I just love having them around me. I love having the energy of these luminous people. And I had this discussion with someone recently, saying, well, Chuck, they're just people. Well, yes, as people, we are all equal as souls. I agree with that. We're all equal as human beings. But let's face it, there are people who have something extra. They have an extra talent. They have something where they had a genius that they channeled that was unlike anybody else. And the way someone like Marilyn Monroe or James Dean, more than 60 years after their death, they can still captivate us and stir our imaginations and inspire us. That's what I mean. Something a little extra special. So I love having this energy surrounding me. And a lot of people even come to my home, even comment on that, saying, wow, I can't put my finger out, but the energy in here is really good. So I think a lot of people pick up on all of that. I've got with all my Lucy stuff and Marilyn and all, a lot of good souls, a lot of good souls around me. And so I have that energy in my home. So anyway, thank you for asking me about that. That's kind of going off my tangent here, but that's the fun of doing this live stream because I found this is the best way to work is to not over prepare. Many times I'll just jot down some ideas, some bullet points, and then I just let spirit take me where it wants to go. And sometimes one of you will have a great comment for me, a question like that. And okay, that's something I hadn't planned to talk on, but hey, so what? We have it. So let me see what else I had here to talk about today. This was spur of the moment because it was supposed to have been the Carol Burnett tribute. Instead, it is a quickie live stream, but I love doing it. Now, one of the things I talked about this week on some of my videos, and it's leading up to Barbara Streisand's birthday. And I certainly make no secret of the fan that I am a mega, mega Barbara Streisand fan, and I have been so since I was 13 years old. And I saw The Way We Were in the movie theater. Yes, I'm old. Do the math. Yeah. That was the first thing I saw her in. I think became a fan of her as an actress before her recordings, before her singing. And let me tell you, I discovered that quickly enough. Um, but I saw The Way We Were, and it was not too long after that. For the very first time in my life on television, I saw Funny Girl. And Funny Girl is, of course, her first movie, and it is the movie she won the Best Actress Oscar for. And it is tour de force, just about the greatest showcase the greatest star ever could have had. The movie lets her sing, do comedy, dance, have her big dramatic moments. Excuse me for coughing there. And 55 years later, it still brings her new fans. And I don't think Pam of Pomona Remembers will remind me just telling you this, that I introduced her to the movie recently. She had never seen it. She hasn't finished the movie. But it's okay to say this, Pam, right? That you're really loving it thus far. And she sent me the most beautiful video of herself reacting to Barbara singing People. And she said to me, Chuck, I want you to feel like a little kid on Christmas morning opening up a present. That's how I feel as I'm watching this movie for the first time. And I wanted you to see that and experience it. And I loved it. Yeah. I love turning people onto that movie. I had a friend in college. I hate Barbara Streisand. I can't stand her. Ugh, ugh, ugh. And I said, would you do me a favor? He was a big film buff like me. love the movie. So I said, "Would you watch Funny Girl?" And I said, "If nothing else, it's an Oscar-winning performance. Now, aren't you curious to watch it for that reason alone?" Because he was big on Academy Awards and that type of thing. And he said, "Okay, all right, I'll watch it." And he called me back the next day. I love her. I love the movie and I love her. And he wanted me to suggest one of her albums to him. He wanted to go out and get his very first Barbara Streisand album. So that's the magic of that movie and the way it lives on. And I just felt compelled to do a few pieces about it. Yeah, Pam, yeah, you were crying, and you were crying beautiful tears. Some of us do ugly cry. Pam does beautiful cry. Very heartfelt, beautiful cry. And, anyway, I've been doing some pieces about Funny Girl. That's often the way I work. I just work as spirit guides me, and I thought, yeah, let's put up some things. And I'm still going through Barbara's autobiography. I'm listening to the audiobook version of it. And right now I'm up to the early 80s and Yentl. I just got through all the 70s. I had this fantasy when the book came out because it's 48 hours. I thought, oh, I'm just going to stay up for 48 hours and listen to the whole thing. No, no, no. This is the sort of thing that needs to be savored. Listen to a chapter or two and then just reflect upon it. So I got to listen to a lot of her accounts of the making of Funny Girl. And that was something I was eager to hear because on the DVD and Blu-ray of Funny Girl, with the audio commentaries, there's none from Barbara. And I was so disappointed because I wanted to hear Barbara talk about the making of the movie. And I think I realize now Barbara was just being very shrewd. She was saving her stories for her own book. That's why she wasn't telling it on the DVD. But thank goodness she is. And there was a great story, very poignant story. I'm just looking at the comments here. First time I saw it in proper context. So beautiful, Pam. I hadn't seen Fernie Girl for a long time. I want to watch it this week. Mystic Soul Insights. Yes, Joyce. Yes, watch it. Maybe the three of us can even talk about it on a future show. I definitely want to get together with Pam and talk about this together for a show. I mean, these are friends. There's an expression called two houses on fire. You put them together and they just start catching on fire. That's the way we tend to be when we talk. And we get very passionate and we get very excited about things. So I have a feeling we're going to be passionate talking about Funny Girl. But anyway, and I don't want to go on too much longer here, but I told a story in one of my videos. It was very sweet. Barbara Streisand had said that I'm going to segue to it, but Barbara Streisand said in her autobiography that in researching Fanny Brice, the real life Fanny Brice, the great vaudeville stage actress, did movies, later did radio, she found that she and Fanny shared a lot of personality similarities to where Barbara said, I felt like we were the same person. And Barbara, wanting to approach us as a serious actress, said, I realized the best way to play Fanny was to play me because we were just the same. My reactions would be Fanny's reactions. And that was when she was doing um, the play originally on Broadway. Oh, and I might add, I have a ticket to go see it next Sunday here in Los Angeles. Obviously not the Streisand version. It's the Broadway revival, and it's a touring company here, but I've never seen it on stage, so I'm excited about that. But Barbara said that was her approach to playing Fanny Brice because Barbara likes to find honesty in her performances. She looks for the truth, and she realized to serve Fanny, that was the best way to do it, to be her. And she did a lot of soul searching on that. And it was interesting. Lucille Ball was interviewing Barbara Streisand for Lucy had a radio talk show at the time, and Lucy was so enthusiastic having seen Barbara on Broadway. And Lucy said a very beautiful thing in the interview. She said, I was good friends with Fanny Brice. And let me tell you, Barbara, she would have been thrilled with you. I know that for a fact. Fanny Brice would have loved your interpretation, would have been so honored by your performance. Now, there couldn't have been anything better than that. So, anyway, flash forward to the movie. 4 years later, and Barbara came to Hollywood. The marvelous William Wyler directed this because Barbara was insistent on having a great dramatic director do this. She didn't want a director of musicals. She wanted a straight dramatic director, and she was right. And excuse me, something in my throat today. William Wyler had never directed a musical before, and so he was very reluctant about it, and even had major hearing loss in one ear. He said, I don't know that I am equipped to be doing a musical." And Barbara kept on. She kept being persistent with him, and she felt in her gut he was the right director. And it was ultimately the fact that William Wyler became very fond of Barbara Streisand. He adored her as a friend. And this was a man who had directed more Oscar-winning performances than any other director. And he was reminded of the time he directed Audrey Hepburn and her very first movie, Roman Holiday. And of course, her debut film, she won the Best Actress Oscar just as Barbara did years later. And William Wyler felt there was something in Barbara that was like Audrey Hepburn. He felt he could bring that out in her. He just knew he could direct her to be something very special on screen, even though she had never made a movie before. And camera acting can be tricky for those who have never studied it, especially for a stage actor. William Wyler even said the main thing he had to do with Barbara was bring her down, because she would play things big like on stage. And he just said, no, no, take it down, take it down, take it down, make it very simple, because that is what camera acting is. It's very quiet, it's simple, it's often not demonstrative. It's more about what's going on in the eyes and in the head. And it's about your energy and how you're doing a dance of energy with your scene partners. But Barbara was a quick study and she was very serious. And William Wyler even loved the fact that she wanted to contribute ideas. She would come to the set every day with a folder with all this writing in it, all these ideas that she had remembered from when she was doing the stage show, because she did 1,000 performances between Broadway and London. And William Wyler respected that. He respected the fact that nobody knew her character better than her, having played it so many times. So he really listened and he wanted her input. And Barbara said that spoiled her a bit, because she thought that's the way it was supposed to be with any movie. Any director would just listen to you and be happy to have your ideas and on. She quickly learned that was not the case at all. And I think as years went on, she had even deeper appreciation for William Wyler. And she always referred to him as her dear, dear friend, and always with great love. But anyway, the story I wanted to tell, sorry to make it so long winded, but I keep thinking of all of these facts to insert in here. Barbara, as a teenager, thought she was very ugly. She had a real inferiority complex about that, thought she was very ugly. Now, she didn't admit that a lot, but she let that come out in an interview she did in the early 70s. I thought I was really ugly. And I thought back to what she said about Funny Girl, how much it touched her on not just her character, but touched her on a personal level when Omar Sharif as Nikki Arnstein tells her she's beautiful. And Barbara took that and used it for the character for the rest of the movie. Great actors like Meryl Streep will say this, that an actor has a secret. They keep a secret, make that part of their performance. Well, that was Barbara's, that this was the only man who had ever told her she was beautiful. And then at the end of the movie, when she loses him, And that scene where she's left there standing. I mean, she has her arms out. I can't do it because screaming, but she's just standing there shell shocked when she realized she had lost him. She had lost the man who told her she was beautiful. And hence that great, great musical number at the end where she comes out and sings My Man, and her voice is cracking and tears are running down her face. And usually when you do a musical, the songs are all pre-recorded and the performer lip syncs, which Barbara hated. She hated lip syncing because she said herself that my performances change. I never sing a song the same way. I may have recorded a song 3 months ago, and now here we are filming, and I'm feeling a totally different emotion, but yet I've got to lip sync to something I did all this time ago. So she pleaded with William Wyler, please, this one number, let me sing it live. Please let me do this number live because it was so emotional. And she said, I've got to be in the moment. I've got to be feeling it. And I've got to sing as I'm feeling it. And William Wyler agreed with her. And this, I don't know why it was considered so unconventional, but it just wasn't done. So this was a rare thing to actually have her sing live, and they filmed it. But to make the scene work, because it is the scene where she's lost Nikki Arnstein and she has to go out and face that audience. Omar Sharif had filmed all of his scenes, and he was literally at his hotel packing his bags and getting ready to leave. I forget where he lived at the time. I can't remember if he was living in Egypt at the time or where, but he was getting ready to fly out of town, and he got a phone call, and it was a special request. Would you do this for Barbara? Please. And he said, of course. So on his own time, having done all of his work, he came to the soundstage the day Barbara was going to film, and he graciously performed, off camera, performed the whole last scene of Nikki and Fanny. He performed it with her. And then he stood behind the black curtain, and Barbara went out. And then, oh, my man, I love him so. He'll never know. We know it. It's famous. It's probably the scene that got her the Oscar. And they had to do 10 takes of that. And each time Omar Sharif would do the scene with her again. And then he would stand just out of camera range. So Barbara knew he was there. If you watch the movie, there are black curtains behind her. Remember that Omar Sharif was back there. And he was there to give his friends support. And I think created one of the most indelible scenes in motion picture history. But just such a giving thing when actors are willing to do that for each other, because look at what we have. Look at the great art we have right now as a result. So anyway, I've talked for about 45 minutes here. I did a live stream. I'm so excited. I'm just seeing if there's any comments here. To see some people here talking about Funny Girl, and that's about it. I just thank you all for joining me. And hopefully next week we'll have our Carol Burnett show special tribute. And we just got a lot of good things in the works here. Pam, Joyce, and I are looking forward to collaborating on some great projects. And I'm going to keep on putting my own videos on my channel and plugging away. And I just thank you. Thank you with all of my heart for being here for me. So once again, please like and subscribe my channel, Chuck's Captivating Chronicles, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.